Knights thunder down the village paths, their horses kicking up dust as the townspeople look on in confusion. The knights demand to know if anyone has seen a man and a woman, but the townsfolk merely shake their heads. The captain then notices tracks, his sharp eyes locking onto the trail. In a fit of frustration, he lashes out, sending the villagers scattering in fear. His grin widens. He now knows where his targets fled. Far away aboard a train, a man and a woman hide in plain sight. Yulrikian, uncomfortably disguised as a woman, sits stiffly while Maddie calmly explains this is the only way to keep them from being noticed. On the front page of the newspaper lies a picture of their wedding, bold and impossible to miss. Passengers chatter, fueling Yulrikian's growing anxiety. However, his wife remains composed, already planning their next move. At last, he was ready to get rid of his disguise, only to nearly choke when Maddie announces her plan. They're jumping off the train. Well, that's one way to test your marriage vows. Yulrikian freezes at the doorway, but before he can object, Maddie leaps off the train, sliding down the hillside. She waits below, calling for him to follow. Screaming, Yulrikian finally hurls himself off the train. Flashback to months earlier, the Grand Duke's servants whisper among themselves, his absence and heavy drinking raising their concern. Yulrikian, the Grand Duke, is currently in the slums, scanning the crowd until his eyes catch a woman, Maddie. With her striking green eyes and loud presence, almost everyone knows her. She readies herself for a gamble, her gaze meeting his. But Yulrikian turns away, uninterested. She trails after him, leading up to a confrontation. Yulrikian inspects the bold woman, just as a stranger lunges behind her. Maddie barely dodges, but luckily, Yulrikian pulls her to safety. The stranger rages, demanding the whereabouts of his wife. Quick-witted, Maddie plays along, pretending she knows nothing of his missing woman. Yulrikian stiffens as the man prepares to strike again, but Maddie doesn't hesitate. She fires a shot on his leg, leaving him writhing on the ground. The townsfolk gasp at the man's scream as Maddie twirls her gun with feigned innocence. She glances at Yulrikian, noticing his uneasy expression, but he roughly pushes her aside, wanting nothing to do with her. Maddie scoffs and brushes it off. She then turns back to the crowd with a sly grin, clutching a stolen brooch like it's her ticket to fortune. Meanwhile, Yulrikian drifts further away, his mind clouded with painful memories. His mother's words echo, and the truth of his parents' death gnaws at him. The throne stolen by a man he dare not name, his own uncle. For years, he's lived as a fool just to survive. Suddenly, darkness. A bag is thrown over his head as men swarm him, beating him up. Just as he's about to collapse, his hope fading, someone tears the sack loose. It's Maddie. Fierce and relentless, she slams one attacker after another to the ground, fighting with the skill of someone who's done this 100 times. For Yulrikian, it's impossible not to wonder, why would she save him? But before he can piece it together, Maddie's expression shifts. She gleefully picks through the fallen men's wallets, laughing as she returns a small pile of coins to him. Money she had gotten by pawning his own brooch. The irony is perfect. He hadn't even realized she'd stolen it. Among the chaos, a chilling detail emerges. The men carried his picture. That wasn't a random attack. It was an assassination attempt. Maddie prepares to leave, but Yulrikian suddenly grabs her arm, stopping her in her tracks. Letting this woman walk away would be a bigger mistake than keeping her close. Maddie yanks her arm free, teasing that Yulrikian is getting bold. He stares at her, baffled. Somehow this strange woman knows exactly who he is, yet she acts with no fear, almost playfully reckless. Still, Yulrikian doesn't walk away. Maddie notices, smirking as if she already understands. If he wants something, he'll have to follow her. Without hesitation, she leads him to her hidden hideout. The place is cramped but secure. Yulrikian settles in, his eyes scanning everything, suspicion still thick in the air. Maddie doesn't mind. She's already pulling out papers, preparing a contract. Her voice is steady, talking about services and fees, while his mind drifts elsewhere. Yulrikian studies her carefully. A flicker of steel glints from beneath her clothes. Concealed weapons. Her skill is no act. Unbothered, Maddie carries on, scribbling details and negotiating terms like a seasoned merchant. Then, without warning, she bears the truth in the rawest way possible. Pulling back her clothes, she reveals scars etched deep into her skin. Every mark is a reminder. She's an orphan who's fought her way through life. With her identity laid bare, his decision solidifies. But instead of hiring her as a bodyguard, his thoughts turn somewhere unexpected. He doesn't want Maddie as his guard, he wants her as his wife. Maddie freezes at Yulrikian's sudden request. A marriage contract? That's far from what she had in mind. She wriggles her arms free, but he doesn't back down. His gaze is steady, his intent firm. He wants to marry her. First, she thought he was insane. Now he's proving it. Maybe they're both a little crazy. But then something snaps her out of disbelief. Did she hear that right? 1 billion just for a fake marriage? Maddie's eyes widen, and when he confirms, her excitement is impossible to hide. An agreement is struck, but something prompts Maddie to read carefully through the contract. Something feels off. His rules are too deliberate, too specific. Then it clicks. Perhaps Yulrikian only pretends to be worthless, probably lying low so the Emperor won't see him as a threat. Yulrikian, watching her connect the dots, can't help but be impressed. At last, both sign the contract. What started as business now seals into a bond. All that remains is the wedding. Days later, at the Grand Duke's estate, the atmosphere is electric. Servants scurry about, whispering about their master's sudden changes. Some think love has finally caught him, while others remain cautious, unsettled by the shift. Meanwhile, Yulrikian himself rides into the village, carriage gleaming, bouquet in hand. He prepares for a grand entrance, ready to declare his love to Maddie in style. But before he can even step forward, Maddie beats him to it, running joyfully toward him with a smile that outshines the bouquet he carries. Yulrikian grows irritated at Maddie's playful antics. None of this was in their carefully written contract. Yet he can't help but watch, face to face with her dazzling acting skills. Careful, boy. Keep this up and you might actually fall for her. He hands her the bouquet and she beams with gratitude so convincingly that even he almost forgets it's all an act. Almost. Shaking the thought away, he listens as Maddie slyly nudges him to carry out the plan. Taking the cue, Yulrikian steps forward and declares his hand in marriage. The village erupts with cheers, the crowd swept up in the drama. But Maddie doesn't stop there. What she does next stuns him. She storms off, only for him to chase after her. Was she taking their performance even further? Then, without warning, she throws his belongings at him one by one. Now that's commitment to the role. Yulrikian barely has time to recover before Maddie begins pounding his chest, crying out as if truly heartbroken. Her words slice into him, perfectly fitting their act. And in that moment, he does the only thing he can. He hugs her tightly. The crowd gasps, enthralled, then cheers louder than before as the two seal the charade with a kiss. And so, the engagement is official. By evening, word of the Grand Duke's sudden marriage spreads like wildfire. As the couple returns to the estate, whispers follow them everywhere. At the Grand Duke's estate, whispers ripple through the servants' halls. Some sneer at the news. How could their master marry a poor woman? Others, though, quietly hope that Maddie might be the one to mend his hollow heart. Meanwhile, Maddie and Yulrikian sit together in the dining room. Maddie, ever playful, places a piece of meat from her plate onto his. The servants freeze. They know the chef had drowned her steak in salt as a cruel trick. Yulrikian, oblivious, takes a bite. Immediately, he coughs and chokes, realizing the food on Maddie's plate is tainted. Still, Maddie casually eats from the other dishes, brushing off her own suspicions about the strangely bittersweet potatoes. She doesn't want to worry him. As night falls, danger stirs. In the kitchen, a man, Miley, sneaks about. But before he can act, Maddie strikes, knocking him unconscious with ease. Far from the estate, he awakens to bounds on his mouth and limbs. Maddie looms over him with a vial of poison tied threateningly near his lips. She demands answers, but Miley keeps a tight lip. Since he's unwilling to cooperate, Maddie leaves him tied. Yet in his desperate struggle, the vial tips and the poison begins seeping into him. Just as his strength fades, Yulrikian bursts in. He frees the cloth from Miley's mouth, saving him from certain death. But Maddie only scowls at her husband's mercy. Yulrikian insists Miley isn't the mastermind, and he's right. Under pressure, Miley confesses. He was merely bribed to poison the Grand Duke. He's about to reveal who gave him the orders, but he stammers and talks gibberish. By Yulrikian's mercy, Miley is let off Maddie's watch, albeit not with ease. Still, Maddie is suspicious, so she presses Yulrikian for answers. However, he brushes her off, more concerned that she may have eaten the poisoned potato earlier. But before they depart, Maddie presses once more. Who was the one Miley spoke of? Hearing this, Yulrikian lowers his head. The truth cuts deep. It was his uncle, the Count of Montegnando. Bold as ever, Maddie casually offers to kill the Count herself to make things even. Yulrikian, however, quickly stops her, but not without a rare moment of gratitude. He thanks her for saving him today. Together, they ride back toward the estate. Along the way, Maddie tilts her head, genuinely curious. Why doesn't a man of his rank have any proper security? Apparently, the answer is chilling. Every guard he's had has either vanished or ended up dead. Maddie, undeterred, flashes him a smile. Now that she's here, she promises that things will be different. My, has the Grand Duke started falling for his contract wife? Back at the estate, the servants whisper among themselves. It's hard not to notice how much Maddie's presence has changed the Grand Duke. Later that night, as the couple prepares to head to their separate bedrooms, Yulrikian suddenly insists they share the same room. At this, Maddie freezes, caught off guard. Inside his chambers, though, the romance vanishes fast. Yulrikian corners her, demanding she return everything she's stolen from him. Just when things were starting to get interesting. Maddie, cornered, hikes up her skirt and begins pulling out trinkets, valuables, and items she'd swiped along the way. He grows more and more irritated until he spots something that makes him pause. She even managed to steal his copy of their contract right out of his chest pocket. The air grows heavy with embarrassment. After a long sigh, Yulrikian makes her swear to stop doing anything illegal under his roof. Naturally, Maddie hesitates, dragging it out with reluctance, but in the end, she agrees. For now, anyway. Yulrikian is left speechless when Maddie suddenly begins to undress. She waves off his alarm, insisting it's all part of the plan to make their fake marriage look real. Soon, the two are tumbling around the bed, shaking it dramatically. They roll back and forth, leaving their scent on the sheet so no servant could possibly doubt the story. Finally, they collapse, Maddie still chattering away until Yulrikian drifts off into sleep. By morning, over breakfast, Yulrikian overhears the maids gossiping in hushed voices about the suspicious noises from his room the night before. Looks like Maddie's plan worked a little too well. Before he can stew on it, Maddie slides him a folded note. It's a letter from one of his relatives, announcing a sudden visit to discuss his controversial marriage. Yulrikian stiffens. For their roost to hold, his marriage to Maddie must earn approval from 3 of his relatives. Quick on her feet, Maddie immediately picks up on the tension and cheerfully readies herself to play the role of Yulrikian's lover when the guest arrives. But just as they prepare to leave, the butler steps forward with a grave expression. He excuses Yulrikian, insisting that he stay to deal with an urgent matter. Trouble never waits its turn, does it? Yulrikian bids farewell to his fiancée, his expression stern as he reminds Maddie once again of the rules she must follow while away from the estate. His words drag on like a lecture, and Maddie, clearly unbothered, gives him a quick nod before silencing his nagging with a playful gesture. She waves him off, turning to the butler who's brought along Rayleigh, a maid assigned to accompany her on the trip. The carriage pulls away from the gates, wheels rattling against the cobblestones. Back at the estate, the butler discreetly steps forward, handing Yulrikian a sealed message. The Emperor's crest glints on the envelope, a summoning he cannot ignore. Inside the carriage, Rayleigh steals cautious glances at Maddie. She intends to stay sharp, unwilling to be deceived by the woman who so suddenly married her master. Yet Maddie's calm and carefree demeanor begins to throw her off. She laughs lightly at the scenery, asks simple questions about the shops they'll visit, and hums as though she has no hidden agenda. Rayleigh listens closely, waiting for the slip of greed or arrogance she expects from someone who married into wealth. But Maddie's words strike differently. Was she truly not using the Grand Duke's name and riches for herself? When Maddie's eyes sparkle with wonder at the bustling streets, it becomes painfully obvious. This was her first time shopping in such luxury. She marvels at the stalls and displays as if she'd stumbled into a dream. Rayleigh's thoughts falter. Should she feel pity for her? Admiration? Or suspicion still? She forces herself to brush the thoughts aside, returning Maddie's polite greeting with one of her own. Oh, really? If you only knew! You've been fooled not just by Maddie, but by the Grand Duke himself! This game runs deeper than you realize. Back at the estate, the tension rises. Count Montenegando arrives unannounced, his presence heavy as he storms into the hall. Without hesitation, he corners Yulrikian with a barrage of questions, demanding answers about his sudden marriage. His persistence sharpens when he offers a young woman's hand, insisting she would be a far better match. Yulrikian is appalled as he refuses without hesitation, his voice firm, but the Count bristles with outrage. The argument threatens to boil over until a voice rings out behind them, clear, confident, and commanding. All heads turn. Maddie stands in the doorway, dressed in an elegant attire that transforms her entirely. She radiates confidence, every step purposeful, as though she had always belonged in such a place. Well, really? It seems you've outdone yourself. Maddie looks every bit to be a Grand Duchess. The Count's anger falters for a moment, and Yulrikian can't help but stare, his irritation replaced with something else entirely. Maddie smiles, perfectly aware of the effect she's making. Yulrikian clasps Maddie's hand, praising her elegant style. She smiles brightly, playing her part. On the other side, Count Montenegando scowls. Their display of affection only fuels his anger. He came here to intimidate Maddie, to push her away before his nephew could be swindled by a poor woman. But Maddie, always a step ahead, suddenly requests that a special liquor be brought out. Absinthe, the very same poison the Count once intended for Yulrikian to consume. The Count stiffens but quickly masks his shock, forcing composure. Maddie, however, doesn't give him time to think. She pours a glass and offers it to him. Then, with a wicked grin, she downs the entire thing herself. The Count's unease deepens when Maddie produces a tiny bottle, the very vial of poison Miley had been carrying. Without hesitation, she tips it back and swallows it. This time, the Count can't contain himself. He rushes forward, shouting for her to spit it out. Yet in doing so, he nearly reveals too much, that he already knew the poison's effects. Maddie seizes the moment, clutching her throat and collapsing dramatically. The Count panics, shrieking in fear, until Maddie sits up laughing, assuring him it was only a joke. And just like that, the hunter becomes the fool. Overwhelmed and cornered, the Count storms out, leaving in defeat. The moment the doors close, Yulrikian rounds on Maddie, furious at her recklessness. Maddie brushes him off, insisting it was all part of her plan to secure his relative's approval. Still unsettled, Yulrikian demands she hand over the poison for safekeeping. But Maddie only smirks, reminding him she already drank it. Yulrikian's heart may have stopped 10 times tonight, and all thanks to his fiancée's terrifyingly bold character. Yulrikian's heart races as he clutches Maddie in his arms, calling desperately for a doctor. Fear flashes across his face. What if the poison has taken hold of her? But Maddie, steady as ever, brushes him off. She insists the poison barely touched her system and warns him not to show weakness in front of others. Enemies, she reminds him, would only use that against him. Yulrikian studies her closely, half believing she's simply putting on another act. Still, he plays along, forcing composure as he thanks her. Leaning in, he seals his gratitude with a soft kiss on her cheek. This makes Maddie blink in confusion, caught off guard by the sudden tenderness. As dawn breaks, Maddie slips away in disguise, making her way into town. She seeks out an old companion, moving quickly through narrow streets until she reaches a hidden meeting spot. The moment she steps inside, she tells her friend in hushed tones that someone has been tailing her. Her companion, Knox, greets her with a grin, his eyes full of mischief as he cuts straight to the point. Is her marriage to the Grand Duke real? 7 years earlier, Maddie had first crossed paths with Knox when he was caught stealing from a man in the alleys. Instead of turning him in, she taught him tricks of survival, how to steal, how to scam the wealthy, and how to live by his wits. Since then, he has been like a younger brother. Now, though, Maddie treads carefully. The truth about her marriage could put him in danger, and she refuses to risk him becoming a target. So she spins her story, speaking with warmth about her love for Yulrikian, weaving details that sound too genuine to question. Knox, however, scoffs as he mocks the Grand Duke. He's dismissing Yulrikian as a weak man. At this, Maddie's patience snaps. She lashes out with a sharp kick, silencing his ridicule. He yelps, rubbing his shin, but his grin lingers, teasing her that she's gone soft. With narrowed eyes, she commands him to dig into the one man at the center of their troubles, Count Montenegando. The name alone makes the air heavier, and even Nox's carefree attitude fades. He realizes this isn't just another one of Maddie's petty schemes. This is dangerous. For Maddie, it isn't just about survival anymore. This is about protecting Yulrikian. Well, technically the money as well, and ending the game her enemy started. And for the first time in years, Nox sees something burning in her eyes. Nox accepts Maddie's request, though unease twists in his gut. He knows Maddie well enough to realize she isn't bluffing. But when she reveals she has no intention of killing the Count, keeping her word to her so-called fiancé, he is stunned into silence. For a thief raised on lies and survival, hearing her speak with such certainty feels almost unreal. Maddie brushes off his doubts, her tone steady yet laced with determination. She proclaims her love for the Grand Duke and insists she won't let anyone threaten their marriage, no matter what schemes are laid against them. Nox stares at her, torn between admiration and disbelief. For the first time, he wonders if Maddie herself has started to blur the line between act and truth. With a crooked smile, he congratulates her, though his eyes betray worry as she heads off, promising to return in a few days. Meanwhile, at the estate, Yulrikian sits alone in his study. The Emperor's letter lies on the desk, its words gnawing at him like an old wound. His hands tighten as he reads it once more, before finally tossing it into the fire. Flames curl around the parchment, consuming it, but the memories it drags forth refuse to vanish. His mother's death resurfaces, her final moments replaying in his mind, leaving a raw ache in his chest. He tries to compose himself, but the sudden sound of footsteps pulls him back. Maddie enters, her eyes darting across the room at the scattered papers, the smoke, and the tension radiating off him. She looks startled, though not by the mess, but what she has to say. Leaning close, she whispers that someone has been spying on them. The revelation cuts through Yulrikian's turmoil, pulling him into the present. Instinctively, he understands what they must do. Straightening, he takes Maddie by the arm, and together they play their roles once more. As the spy lingers unseen, the couple draws closer, their act slipping into dangerous reality. Maddie tilts her face up. Yulrikian lowers his head, and their lips meet in a kiss that seals their performance. Now that's what I call commitment to the plan. Their lips meet, and Yulrikian's chest tightens with emotions he refuses to name. Maddie's promises and her fearless defiance echo in his mind, making his heart race faster than he can steady it. Oh, looks like our cold Grand Duke just discovered his heart isn't as frozen as he thought. He tries to dismiss it as nothing more than an act, clinging to the excuse of their contract. But the warmth that lingers tells a different story. The spy remains longer than expected, forcing them to keep up appearances. Every moment pushes them closer to a dangerous truth neither dare to admit. Just before the tension deepens, Maddie pulls away, signaling that the spy is finally gone. The silence after feels heavier than the kiss itself. Outwardly calm, Yulrikian can't stop the moment from replaying in his mind. The next morning brings quite a sight. Maddie awkwardly bundled up on a carpet while her gown rests over Yulrikian like a blanket. He rushes to wake her, baffled by the absurd scene. But before questions can be asked, a knock interrupts them. At the door is the butler, eyes twinkling with curiosity. A guest awaits. Soon after, Yulrikian strides into the reception hall, dressed flawlessly, though his mind is still haunted by yesterday. Waiting there is Crocton Vinyl, his longtime friend, sharp-eyed and quick to notice the smallest detail. Crocton greets him warmly, but the conversation cuts deep. He hints at unsettling whispers. Someone claims Maddie has been seen with another man. Yulrikian stiffens as Crocton's words sink in. Every detail matches Maddie too closely, and though he tries to shake it off, his clenched fists betray his turmoil. Is that jealousy I see on the Grand Duke's face? Crocton insists Maddie has been seen with another man ever so often. The description rattles Yulrikian, enough to make him snap for details. His frustration spills out, revealing just how much this rumor unsettles him. Crocton presses on, but his tone wavers. Even he's surprised to see his friend so insecure. He adds that this mysterious man doesn't even resemble the kind Maddie is rumored to like, which only fuels Yulrikian's anger further. Though deep inside, he cannot truly believe Maddie would betray him. Unexpectedly, Crocton mentions a woman named Astrid, but Yulrikian immediately shuts him down. I wonder who that is. Then Maddie enters, her presence scattering the heavy mood like wind through smoke. Yulrikian forces composure, introducing her, but she and Crocton immediately get off on the wrong foot. Their exchange is hostile, both unwilling to lower their pride. In one swift move, Maddie seizes his sword and displays flawless skill, her stance sharp and commanding. Crocton hides his surprise, but the message is clear. This bride is not as fragile as he expected. Yulrikian scolds her for her recklessness, torn between pride in her strength and annoyance at her boldness. Crocton, however, leaves with doubt still in his eyes. He's wary of Maddie and what she represents. Later, in the garden, Yulrikian confronts Maddie. He reprimands her for provoking Crocton, but she brushes it aside, claiming his friend has hidden motives. Yulrikian insists otherwise, but jealousy still lingers in his chest. His thoughts finally escape in a clumsy question about Nox, Maddie's supposed secret lover. Maddie bursts out laughing, brushing off the accusation with ease. Before he can recover, she mounts a horse effortlessly, leaving Yulrikian stunned by yet another hidden skill. With a smirk, she rides out to uncover the truth behind the rumors herself, leaving Yulrikian behind, jealous, conflicted, and perhaps even more captivated than before. Maddie gallops through the countryside, determination blazing in her eyes. Whoever planted the spy must be tied to Crocton. She can feel it. Always trust your gut, girl. 2 days pass and Maddie shadows Crocton from a distance. His movements are too deliberate, too secretive for a mere night. She crouches behind a market stall, watching. When danger of being spotted arises, she swiftly shifts into her role as a chatterbox noblewoman, blending in with villagers as if gossiping were her only concern. Clever as always, Maddie knows how to slip through cracks unnoticed. Her eyes narrow when Crocton disappears into a secluded place. Curious, she asks a passing villager who offhandedly shares that the home belongs to a lone woman and her child. Selfish people, unwilling to share even scraps of food. The villager grumbles, but Maddie smiles politely, offering him a small token before leaving. Astrid. The name burrows into Maddie's thoughts. Why would Crocton visit her? And more importantly, why has Yulrikian never mentioned this? A flicker of unease sparks inside her. She can't shake the feeling that Yulrikian is hiding something important. If she is to protect herself in her marriage, she must uncover every secret, no matter how dark. Back at the estate, servants begin to whisper, "Where has Maddie gone?" Some cast doubtful glances, old prejudices creeping back. Yet Rayleigh stands firm in her defense, reminding them that Maddie has shown more sincerity than anyone gives her credit for. The chef scoffs, arguments bubbling between them, but even he knows Maddie isn't the villain people make her out to be. The debate ends abruptly when the coachman spots a familiar figure approaching. Maddie, wary but upright, rides back into the courtyard. Relief washes over the staff, though unease lingers. Inside, Yulrikian paces, utterly concerned. Had she run away? Been taken? Did she betray him? Just as despair threatens to overwhelm him, the butler barges in. Maddie has returned. But relief turns to dread as the butler adds that Maddie's condition is poor. The grand doors slam open as Yulrikian storms in, his eyes instantly finding Maddie's weakened form. He rushes to her side, hands trembling as he searches for proof she's unharmed. His voice, sharp and desperate, demands answers. Was she with another man? Well, well, the unshakable Grand Duke finally cracks, and in front of everyone no less. The servants freeze, gasps ripple through the hall. Never before have they seen their master so undone. Maddie looks up at him, gently smiling as she promises herself wholly to him. But Yulrikian's heart refuses her comfort. To him, it feels like a performance. One more mask he cannot tear away. His frustration swells and he turns his back, jaw tight, haunted by jealousy and fear. Rayleigh steps forward, steadying Maddie. Around them, the servants close ranks protectively. Her pale face and trembling hands only deepen their concern. As Maddie is guided toward her chambers, tears gather in her eyes. For the first time in years, she lets them fall, not from weakness, but gratitude. With quiet sincerity, she thanks the people who care for her. The hall shifts. Servants who once whispered against her now weep openly. The kitchen bursts into motion, determined to restore her strength with food and warmth. Maddie is ushered into comfort, seated with dishes piled high. She's treated not as an outsider, but as family. Careful, Yulrikian. Your bride has stolen the hearts of your entire household. Morning arrives bright and calm, but peace is short-lived. A carriage bearing imperial colors rolls through the gates. The butler announces the guest with solemn weight. Salome Bartolos, consort appointed by the emperor himself, steps into the estate, her elegance sharpened with pride. And with her arrival, Maddie's fragile peace faces its greatest test yet. Yulrikian stiffens the instant Salome steps into his estate. Her presence alone drags the weight of old betrayal, her family's name forever tied to his parents' deaths. His expression hardens and he flatly refuses to welcome her. Even worse, he refuses to be with her at the ball. The servants gasped, stunned by his blunt rejection. Salome falters, her pride stung. But before the tension can thicken, Maddie appears behind him, playfully showing off a display of affection as she plants a kiss on Yulrikian's lips. But cheeky as ever, she bolts right away. Yulrikian breaks from his stoic mask, chasing after her without hesitation. The servants scatter after them, caught up in her whirlwind of energy. Salome is left standing alone, humiliated. The butler steps forward with quiet authority, reminding her that within these walls, it is the Grand Duke's word that rules. This makes Salome lash out, striking his cheek in rage, but he does not yield. Her fury rises as she raises her hand again, only to be stopped mid-motion. Maddie catches her wrist with a mocking smile, plucks the glove from her hand and smacks it back against her face. The crowd erupts in shock as Maddie's grip tightens with unshakable strength. Salome's maids rush forward to defend her, but Maddie moves with precision. Each flick of her wrist sends them stumbling, their gloves thrown back at Salome's feet like discarded pride. Trapped and furious, Salome finally accepts Maddie's challenge. As she moves, her sleeve slips, revealing a strange mark on her wrist. Maddie's eyes catch it immediately, sharp with suspicion. Before she can speak, Salome strikes with a sharp slap across Maddie's cheek. A slap so hard that it silences the onlookers in the courtyard. Oh, Salome, that was bold, but you may have just written your own downfall. A furious roar cuts through the air. Yulrikian has returned. For one fleeting moment, Salome's chest swells, certain he has come to her side. Yulrikian storms across the courtyard, every thought fixed on Maddie. Salome may as well be invisible. His hands hover protectively, trembling as if she might shatter at the slightest touch. Our Grand Duke, normally an iceberg, has turned into a frantic mess. Maddie really has him wrapped around her finger. Salome dares to step forward, indignant, but Yulrikian silences her, fury burning in his gaze. He witnessed everything, how she dared to lay hands on the butler and Maddie. Once more, she is reminded that she's not welcome here. The air turns brittle, and servants freeze as the weight of his defiance settles. Even the Emperor's shadow cannot sway him. This is his estate, his choice, and his protection falls firmly around Maddie. Maddie, never one to stay meek, tilts her chin with a spark of mischief. She reminds Salome of the duel, her grin sharp and daring. Salome's pride cannot bear retreat. With venomous speed, she lashes out again, striking Maddie across the face. Maddie stumbles. Yulrikian staggers in horror. Moments earlier, Maddie had tugged Yulrikian aside in secret. She urged him to play along, to chase her dramatically, to make their act more convincing. He had protested, cautious as always, but her radiant smile unraveled his resistance. Later, in his chambers, Yulrikian's frustration spills over. Maddie went too far. Striking Salome was never part of the plan. Maddie only laughs softly, rubbing her stinging cheek. She insists Salome deserved every ounce of it. He groans, torn between anger and worry. Her recklessness could drive him mad. Yet beneath it all, his decision is clear. He will face the Emperor himself. He refuses to stand beside anyone but her. His voice falters as unspoken words hang in the air. Words his pride cannot yet release. Before he leaves, Maddie's curiosity sharpens. She asks if he has ever loved another. Never, he says, without missing a beat. Her smile is pleased, but her eyes linger a moment too long. When the door closes, that smile fades. A memory flickers. The silver-haired child she saw in the village. And Yulrikian's denial settles in her chest like a lie too heavy to ignore. At the palace, Yulrikian seeks out the Emperor, determined to speak directly with him. The Emperor greets him with calculated warmth, but tension simmers beneath the formal exchange. Back at the Grand Duke's estate, Maddie tends to the butler with surprising gentleness. She presses a warm egg to his bruised cheek. her playful manner softening the sting of the earlier slap. The butler is taken aback. This girl, who seems to live for mischief, has a heart brimming with kindness too. But her next question nearly makes him choke. She wonders if Yulrikian has ever had another woman, someone hidden away from her knowledge. Since the butler has always been close to the Grand Duke, she wants the truth straight from him. He quickly assures her there has been no one else, that Yulrikian's heart belongs solely to her. Yet when Maddie drops a particular name, something shifts in his expression. Unable to keep it in, he reveals a secret that knocks Maddie right out of her seat. Yulrikian has a niece. Definitely not what I was expecting. Her shock deepens as the butler explains further. Apparently, Yulrikian had a twin sister whose existence was hidden from the public. The family lived quietly, bound by love, until tragedy struck. On the day of their father's death, fire engulfed the palace. To protect her, their mother severed all ties, allowing his twin to live as an ordinary girl. Maddie listens in disbelief. No one knows what became of Yulrikian's twin after that day. Still, Maddie understands the painful necessity of keeping his twin's identity secret. Sensing Maddie's unease, the butler steadies her once more. He reminds her firmly that Yulrikian's love has never wavered, that Maddie is his only choice. Relief floods her face, her radiant smile returning in full. Maddie practically glows with joy, her affection for Yulrikian bubbling over as she clutches the butler's hand. Looks like our fiery heroine just needed a little reassurance. And judging by that grin, she's more in love than ever. On the carriage ride home, Yulrikian sits in heavy silence, his mind replaying the disaster at the palace. His hands tighten into fists. He has gone there with a single purpose, to demand that the Emperor allow him to attend the ball with his fiancée. An hour earlier, in the gilded halls of the palace, Yulrikian had made his stand. His words were sharp but unwavering. He would only appear at the ball if Maddie was by his side. The Emperor's face hardened. He dismissed Maddie as a stain on the family's reputation, a poor woman unworthy of such a stage. But Yulrikian didn't back down. Drawing on Maddie's fiery influence, he raised his voice, defying the throne itself. His conviction shook the chamber, enough that the Emperor himself shouted silence, unwilling to hear more. The audience ended abruptly. Yulrikian dismissed in anger. Now, riding back, Yulrikian cannot shake the sting of those words, nor the fear of what they mean for Maddie. At the estate, he arrives only to find Maddie gone. Rayleigh steps forward, informing him that she left early that morning. Meanwhile, in the slums, Maddie keeps her promise and returns to Nox. Her disguise throws him off for a moment, but she wastes no time. She asks what he's discovered about Count Montenihando. Nox falters when she brings up the rumors surrounding her, clearly unsettled. Maddie, however, brushes it off with a grin. She's already dealt with those troublemakers. But when it comes to Montenihando, Nox hesitates. His investigation holds answers, yet he clearly hides something from her. Maddie narrows her eyes, silently promising herself she won't rest until the Count approves her marriage with the Grand Duke. 2 days later, the Grand Ball finally arrives. The Grand Hall is glittering with nobles and ambition, but Salome's simmering anger nearly boils over. She fumes at the Grand Duke's cold indifference, ready to lash out again, until her eyes land on someone that make her freeze. Maddie. Well, well, guess who just stole the spotlight? Salome can't hide her irritation as she watches Yulrikian and Maddie together. She prepares to enter the ball by his side, determined to claim the spotlight. Unfortunately for her, Yulrikian refuses. Calm yet cutting, he makes it clear. He'll only be with Maddie. Any rudeness from Salome won't be tolerated. Ouch, that's one way to slice through her pride. At the entrance, the guards step forward. Invitations are required. Maddie doesn't falter. She turns away gracefully, putting on a performance that tugs at the noble's sympathy. Heads turn, whispers spread. Her poised sorrow is flawless, and Yulrikian plays along. Inside, the plan takes root. Nobles murmur, pitying the poor woman left outside, admiring her beauty and loyalty. Yulrikian, meanwhile, keeps his distance from Salome. His cold indifference sparks even more rumors. To the watching eyes, it's obvious. His heart belongs elsewhere. By the window, he's interrupted by Princess Miel, his cousin. Their exchange is polite but painfully awkward, leaving the princess embarrassed enough to flee. The Emperor and Empress notice, their gaze is heavy with disapproval. They've also noticed Yulrikian's strange behavior tonight, and how it all points to Maddie. Then a sudden commotion. News sweeps through the hall. Maddie has been taken hostage. Yulrikian bursts out of the ballroom, his eyes locking onto Maddie. She's being held tightly by a stranger, a sharp tension crackling in the air. The man's voice carries a strange relief. He calls her name as if it's a miracle, insisting she's alive. Maddie stares back in confusion, denying any connection, yet he introduces himself as Jan. Before he can go on, Yulrikian intervenes. With one swift move, he pulls Maddie from Jan's grasp, his glare dark and unyielding. Jan doesn't fight back. His gaze remains fixed on Maddie as if she were the answer to everything. But Yulrikian doesn't care. He whisks her away from the palace without hesitation. On the ride home, Maddie insists she has no idea who Jan is, brushing it off as a case of mistaken identity. Yulrikian doesn't press her further, though doubt lingers in his silence. Clearly, he's not buying her story, but he keeps it to himself for now. A week passes, and Maddie returns to Nox, eager for updates on Count Montenegando. But nothing new surfaces. Every path is blocked. Maddie refuses to give in. Determination flashes in her eyes. If the truth won't come to her, she'll chase it down herself. Before heading out in disguise, she hesitates for a moment, asking Nox if he's ever heard of Jan. His answer is short and final. He hasn't. Maddie pushes the thought aside, focusing instead on uncovering Astrid's trail in Crocton's secret dealings. She's not backing down. If no one else will hand her answers, she'll carve out her own. Following Crocton around, Maddie has seen him meet with the one-eyed spy who'd been tailing her. Aside from that, he also sold detailed reports about Astrid's condition and walked away with heavy rewards. Judging by how the maid leaves every weekend, he must be feeding information regularly. Meanwhile, Maddie slips toward a house. She thinks Crocton is a long-term threat to Yulrikian, but not one to handle tonight. A fool like him hides dangerous secrets carelessly. His time will come. She pries open a lock with a tool hidden in her shoe, steps inside, and spots a man's silhouette. Meanwhile, at another part of the slums, a hooded figure seeks an old woman. An investigator, but is actually Nox in disguise. The client wants an investigation done, something that Nox finds simple enough until the name Maddie wipes away his smile. Pressed, the client lowers his hood. It's Yulrikian, Maddie's fiancé. He explains that love does not always uncover truth, so he must resort to this method. Nox, still in disguise, asks if he would still marry her if she was a thief, obsessed with money or drank heavily. Yulrikian twists each flaw into virtue. Resourceful, quick, strong, insisting he only wishes to share her pain if she carries it. He warns Nox that Maddie must never learn of this, promises more pay if needed, and says he will return in 10 days. As Yulrikian leaves, Nox marvels at how such a man seeks Maddie's, his longtime friend's, hand. But Yulrikian's thoughts are elsewhere. Could Maddie be out again tonight? She is. Bloodied but unbroken, she strangles a man to death, noting his aggressive style and suspicious garb. Healing quickly, she muses that her fiancé would have fainted at the sight. This attack feels nothing like Yulrikian's doing. Perhaps Crocton and the one-eyed spy are behind it. Her dagger breaks, forcing her to clutch a shard of glass. Just then, a shadow flickers, a woman with a sword. Maddie scares her off, storms through the house, and bursts the door wide open. Astrid is there. The assassins falter when Maddie appears. Their orders had been simple: kill the woman, wreck the place, and leave. No one was supposed to get in their way. Maddie's mind races. She once considered sending Yulrikian's sister and niece away or forging new identities. But now she's come to find out that Yulrikian's sister is dead, meaning that Astrid can't be left alone. Smuggling her out carelessly might provoke those behind this. If Yulrikian loses his last family, it will destroy him. If he loses the will to live and breaks their contract, Maddie will suffer too. She greets Astrid warmly, saying she looks like someone she knows. Carefully, she tries to reassure her that she isn't a bad person. If Astrid comes with her, she'll be her new mother. The nanny trembles, claiming to be Astrid's mother, but Maddie knows better. An assassin seizes the nanny, knife to her throat. Their job is to kill her, take the child, and go. Maddie thanks them sarcastically for revealing their plan. Smiling, she warns them they won't leave alive. 5 moles on one man's hand? Maddie can only guess they belong to the Harvin gang. Before the assassin can react to Maddie's familiarity, Maddie leaps, ordering the nanny to cover Astrid's eyes as she knocks them down. Soon, Maddie changes into the assassin's garb, making Astrid recoil. Reassuringly, she explains she had to change and that she was sent by the master to protect them. But when the nanny asks why Crocton didn't come himself, Maddie realizes that it was he, Crockton, who orchestrated this. Even the nanny was his spy. Fury surges. Maddie immediately realizes Crockton's plan. Stage a crisis, hide Astrid beyond Yulrikian's reach, and control him through fear. Suddenly, a memory terrorizes Maddie's mind. Chains and someone being forced to eat. Having had enough of this cruelty, Maddie then turns to Astrid. She offers her hand, saying they'll get out of there. When Astrid hesitates to take her hand, Maddie reveals the truth. She tells her she is Yulrikian's friend, here to protect her. Since Astrid seems too quiet to speak, Maddie suggests nodding instead. Astrid nods. Maddie notices scars on her palms and legs, her thin clothes unfit for the cold. She asks if the nanny did this, if the nanny told her to always say no. Astrid nods again. Maddie offers a choice, stay until the nanny wakes or come with her and read a fairy tale. She assures Astrid she can hear her thoughts, that's why she came when she called for help. Maddie promises to hold her so she won't be afraid. Finally, Astrid takes her hand. Maddie pulls her close and hugs her. Elsewhere, in a luxury hotel, General Svitian arrives. An attendant delivers the clothes he requested. He pays, declines breakfast, then retreats to his room. Removing his wig, he reveals his true identity. Nox. He recalls how the Count of Montenegrin finally took the bait. Pretending to drop his betting slip almost failed when the Count vanished for a week, but today he returned, delighted at his supposed fortune. In truth, he had already lost the 1,000 dillion he thought he won. Still, Nox steered him into another big win before they parted. The Count never heard of Svitian, but Nox claimed Persian roots. Impressed by his clothes and poise, the Count deemed him a wealthy man of luck. In truth, Svitian isn't lucky at all. He merely bribed the jockeys and tampered with the horses to rig the races and earn the Count's trust. Soon, the Count will run to his mistress, asking about Svitian, and that'll just be the beginning of Nox's plans. Now's the time for the bigger game Maddie mentioned. Nox heads to Maddie's home, but is in disbelief to see Maddie carrying a child. She even introduces him as Uncle Nox. Nox's brain can only process that this is Maddie and Yulrikian's child. Seeing Astrid's age, he demands to know how long they've been together. Maddie ignores him and tucks Astrid into bed. She leaves her under Nox's care, promising to come back with Yulrikian by sunrise. Before she leaves, she warns Nox not to bother Astrid since she rarely talks. Alone, Nox, still baffled, asks Astrid what happened. Elsewhere, Yulrikian sinks into his chair, wary. The work has piled up from wandering around with Maddie the past few weeks. He quickly recalls his father's words. They weren't born royal because of good deeds, but must do good because countless lives rest on their shoulders. After all, leadership is not a privilege but a duty. It's been 3 nights since Maddie hasn't returned. Heck, he wonders if she's coming back. To Philip, the butler, Yulrikian admits not understanding why Maddie leaves without a word. She once swore to stay by his side forever, yet what does that mean when she vanishes without saying a thing? Philip notes how Yulrikian stayed up again, reminding him that Maddie would want him to sleep. Yulrikian knows she would notice his fatigue, but she never realizes it's because he waits for her, not as a partner in a con, but as someone who cares. Later, he climbs into bed when suddenly he feels a touch. Maddie lies beside him. He startles, ordering her away, but she teases him about his pajamas and their contract, suggesting they act like a real couple. His heart races, but he dismisses it as arrhythmia and PTSD from seeing Maddie kill. No way is he flustered, right? Though annoyed, he feels at peace near her. But all air leaves his lungs when Maddie casually brings up how she met his niece. With all seriousness, Yulrikian asks Maddie again who she met. When she says Astrid, his weakness, he demands to know what she did. In her defense, Maddie made sure no one could exploit Yulrikian's weakness. She even smirks, remarking that they now hold each other's weaknesses. Furious, Yulrikian grabs her arm. Since his public proposal, she has been his greatest weakness. Maddie pushes him off, reminding him their contract allows no secrets. How could he hide his niece from her? Yulrikian defends himself. He wouldn't expose Astrid to a scammer. Maddie snaps back. Then why was the house so unprotected? Tension flares as he pins her, insisting she can't understand the effort it took to protect Astrid. Did she kill her? Maddie answers she only hid her, adding that she knows his fortune isn't for revenge, but to protect Astrid. Stunned, Yulrikian accuses her of digging into him. But honestly, Maddie admits it's her way of life. She trusts no one, always verifying. To her, it's just business. In hushed tones, she asks him to prepare himself for truths he can't fathom. On horseback, Maddie breaks the truth to Yulrikian. Astrid was abused. Thin clothes for winter, scars, and subtle beatings to avoid suspicion. Worse, assassins held Astrid and the nanny hostage. Of course, Maddie eliminated them before Astrid noticed. Yulrikian bristles. Does she think killing is funny? Maddie grins. She protected his weakness perfectly. When he protests, she calls herself the best fixer, never discarded. The word unsettles him. Arriving, Yulrikian asks about the nanny. Maddie shrugs. Crockton would have handled her. Yulrikian doubts it, but Maddie calls him a fool for trusting Crockton. Then, fixing Yulrikian's tie, Maddie reveals the final blow. She posed as an assassin and learned who ordered the kidnapping. His dearest friend. Here's a little flashback to what happened in the span of time before Knox met Astrid. Apparently, early yesterday morning, Maddie instructs Astrid to put on an act, to play the frightened child kidnapped by a terrifying villain. Maddie leaves her counting with eyes shut, then corners the captured assassin, demanding where he was to meet his client and receive payment. Shaking, he admits. Calderon Street, 3rd Avenue. Disguised as the assassin, Maddie arrives at the meeting place. There, Crockton awaits. She demands the balance from him before handing over Astrid. Crockton calls Astrid by name. Though blindfolded, she recognizes his voice and rushes to him immediately. He then tosses Maddie a bag of money, telling her to check the amount. As she bends to do so, he draws his sword, slashing Maddie bloodily. Hearing her scream, Astrid peeks, thinking the play is over. But Crockton soothes her, saying the person who brought her was a bad man, and he punished him to protect her. But something is wrong. When he uncovers Maddie's face, he and Astrid are shocked. Beneath the disguise is not Maddie at all. Crockton feels no remorse. Maddie or not, as long as Yulrikian's niece is in his grip and no witnesses, his plan is secure. He will hide her away, claim a spy lurks among Yulrikian's aides, and keep him as a puppet. He drags Astrid through an alley, warning her never to remove the blindfold. He locks her in an empty room, telling her to wait. Frightened, Astrid counts to 100, just as Maddie once taught. Back to the present, Astrid awakens in Knox's arms. He assures her that Maddie never breaks promises, and Astrid knows this all too well. After all, Maddie did save her a second time. Just then, Maddie enters with Yulrikian. Maddie is definitely a superhero in her eyes. 3 years ago, Yulrikian's carriage stopped when a woman blocked its path. She slipped a note through the door begging him to save Astrid, her daughter who had become mute after watching her own father die. When Yulrikian opened it, he saw his long-lost twin sister, Lavidia. The night the Crown Prince's palace burned, Lavidia vanished. Their mother never spoke of her, and Yulrikian assumed her dead. Seeing her again, he asked where she had been, why she never contacted them, or if she had married. Lavidia said nothing. Instead, she placed Astrid in his arms and ran, never looking back. Days later, after searching desperately, Yulrikian found her dead in a hut. It looked like a robbery, but who would rob such a place? He cradled her body, broken that she returned only to die. She must have known her end was near, so she entrusted Astrid to him before she was hunted down. They buried Lavidia quietly, but Astrid was never the same. She didn't cry or smile, eating only enough to survive. No doctor could cure her mutism. Seeing Lavidia and Astrid, Yulrikian broke. If only he could have protected them. Unable to take the guilt, he summoned his dearest friend, Crockton. Yulrikian entrusted Astrid to him, pleading that he look after her and ensure her survival. Since then, he visited her often, though she never smiled. Now at present, seeing Astrid smile with Maddie, he realizes she has bloomed. He offers to clean Astrid up, but Maddie refuses. It's more appropriate for her to bathe Astrid anyway. Unfortunately for Yulrikian, Astrid clings silently to Maddie in agreement. Left alone with Knox, Yulrikian soon realizes that he was the old woman investigator. When he suspects a romance between Knox and Maddie, Knox shrieks at the thoughts. Just then, Maddie returns with a bone to pick with Yulrikian. Turns out, Astrid is a boy? Knox stares in shock, but Yulrikian only shrugs. Knox, though, snatches the child away, calling Yulrikian a weirdo for dressing him as a girl. Astrid then smacks his mouth, and Maddie explains it's just her habit when someone says something bad. Knox presses on. A child hidden indoors had no choice in the matter. Maddie agrees, even quipping that such a deviance belongs in a hospital. Irritated, Yulrikian defends himself. Astrid's disguise protects her. If her identity is revealed, the Emperor's only daughter might see her as a threat. Better a false face than a succession crisis. Not gonna lie, but he's making sense and Maddie concedes to it too. Suddenly, memories crash into her. Children stripped of name, family, and self. Trained to live disguised in the shadows. Another flash, someone injected by force. Yulrikian notices her trembling and reaches out, but Maddie shoves his hand away, furious. When she recovers, Nox breaks the tension, reminding them not to fight in front of the kid. Maddie apologizes. She claims she panicked, feeling the weight of their status. She then opens a door, inviting Yulrikian to continue inside. As they walk, she mentions someone she owes gratitude to. Lady Alma, a reclusive widow who lent them her home. They are on their way to meet her now. Yulrikian hesitates. If Alma is so important, is it right for her false fiancé to meet her? They were in the middle of something serious, and now Maddie suddenly wants introductions. Maddie slips into a room to meet Alma, leaving Yulrikian outside. Left waiting, Yulrikian wonders if she's dodging the earlier moment. Still, he hopes that if she ever struggles, she will confide in him. Perhaps this meeting is proof she's beginning to trust. Then Alma appears. Without preamble, she asks if he's really marrying Maddie. What's more, does he love her? Caught off guard, Yulrikian stammers and admits that he truly loves Maddie. Yulrikian admits he has loved Maddie since the first time he saw her. Love at first sight, back at the bar when she was playing poker. Her skill with her hands, her way of winning, he finds it admirable when someone masters a craft. But Alma scoffs. Gambling is no skill, only addiction. She presses. What exactly did he fall for? Yulrikian answers without hesitation. Her beauty, her smile, unlike anyone else. Alma retorts that Maddie's body is scarred, making her look like a thug. But Yulrikian insists the scars are proof of her strength. Maddie isn't a thug, she's resilient. It isn't addiction, but competitiveness. He praises her determination, her spirit, her strength. He misses her when she's gone, longs for her to rest by his side, though it pains him that he's not enough. Alma cuts him off with a laugh, saying his speech sounds rehearsed. Then Yulrikian freezes. Maddie peels away the disguise. She is Alma. Inside, Yulrikian sees the room lined with portraits. Maddie reveals this is Henderson's atelier. Yulrikian is stunned. Henderson is the famed painter whose works sell for fortunes. Maddie corrects him. Henderson never existed. Nox played him. The paintings? All her own works. Yulrikian doesn't believe it because she'd be famous if she sold them. Maddie interrupts, shifting through disguises. Baron Defonso, Nopale, the flower seller, and a wandering gypsy. She declares she is more than Maddie. She's a top-class con artist. She even offers to launder Astrid's identity, make her anyone, anywhere, safe from royal intrigue. Yulrikian's face hardens. Maddie only wants Astrid sent away. He clenches his fist. Astrid stays with him. He won't raise her in hiding, won't let her be treated like cargo. Maddie claps her hands, grinning. This was the answer she wanted. She raises her hand for a high five, because she too wants to live with Astrid. Maddie applauds Yulrikian's choice, saying distance is never safe, only control is. He realizes she has been testing him all along. She admits she saw his hesitation and only wanted to help him uncover what he felt. But her reasoning only fuels his anger. She has played games with a child's life, unable to have a normal conversation without turning it into a trap. For him, she thrives on cornering people. Maddie only smirks, claiming that truth comes out under pressure. Yulrikian concludes she never trusts him, but she counters that neither of them do, and this is simply her way. He recalls hoping that, even after their contract, they might remain in each other's lives. Yet now he questions everything. Why did she lie about Lady Alma instead of speaking about Astrid from the start? Bitterly, he admits she has proven how easily he can be fooled. He apologizes for confusing personal feelings with business. He expresses that he'll follow her methods without complaint, and then turns to leave. Maddie catches his sleeve. Her voice trembles as she begs him not to look at her that way. Tears fall as she admits that deception and vanishing are the only things she knows. His resolve softens, but he reminds himself she has toyed with him repeatedly. He says he understands. She's a master at her craft. And ends it. But Maddie pulls him close, whispering that if she shows her true self, it'll be harder for him to forget her. Honestly, she doesn't want him to abandon and forget her. For once, Yulrikian sees no act in her tears. She collapses in his arms, unconscious. Holding her, he confesses his fear. Even if she disappears, he will spend the rest of his life searching, never able to return to the man he was before her. Maddie wakes in her bed, and the first thing she sees is Yulrikian's bare chest. Startled, she pushes him away and asks where Nox is. Yulrikian says Nox is with Astrid, and that Nox was disgusted to see him carrying Maddie. Maddie is confused, but Yulrikian insists she's pretending again. Before collapsing, she had begged him not to forget her. He asks desperately what is real now. Maddie, shocked, claims she remembers nothing, dismissing it as sleep talk. But Yulrikian pulls her close, speaking to her as if she were Alma, begging to know where Maddie went, confessing he can love no one else. Maddie breaks eye contact, slightly flustered. She teases him, telling him to find a new woman, but Yulrikian refuses, saying he will cling harder. At this, Maddie walks away, almost nonchalantly, mocking his acting. He suspects she's more attached than she admits, yet wonders why he keeps hoping. To end it, he asks for alcohol. Later, Maddie hauls a drunk Yulrikian on her back, grumbling at his weak tolerance. He protests the liquor's strength and marvels at her inhuman stamina. She dumps him on a cart of apples, telling him to sleep. When he mentions Astrid, Maddie warns they cannot reveal him yet. Yulrikian jokes they should claim Astrid as their child and marry, forcing others to accept it. Maddie considers. The Emperor likely knows Astrid exists. The real danger is Crockton. If Crockton believes Harvin took Astrid, they only need to maintain the lie. She starts scheming, but Yulrikian stops her, saying he will explain properly later. Flat on his back, with Maddie over him, Yulrikian teases her about touching his chest. But Maddie silences him with a kiss. Yulrikian, sprawled out, rambles on about marriage and family. Little does he know that he isn't even speaking to her, but to a pumpkin set on his chest. Yet when he suddenly pins her down and kisses her before blacking out, Maddie is left speechless. She wonders if, just like him, she has arrhythmia too.